CR here, and I've gotten into video game collecting as of recently, and I've been kind of confused at the reasons as to why when I look up a game, that the price is at times exponentially different between American games and Japanese games, and wanted to learn a bit more about why exactly that is. While I didn't find many 100% known reasons, I wanted to share some speculation as to why that is, and if at some point there's any Japanese viewers or Americans that know a bit more about the gaming market, feel free to let me know more information in the comments. I'll also be linking to a Reddit thread that asks the same question, and where I'll be giving the speculations from. There's a couple places that say the biggest reason is that most companies that made the now retro games were Japanese in the first place, which led to a bigger yield of those games obviously coming to Japan, with some games either never making it outside of Japan or coming out in very limited quantities. This is a reason I've known before due to Earthbound, as around that time, Japanese developers had sort of given up on the West as far as RPGs go, leading to the whole fiasco with Final Fantasy titles, as some of the games didn't come to America until years later on completely different consoles. Final Fantasy IV came out as Final Fantasy II in America, with 2 and 3 original releases not coming to America until a good bit after the fact, with a couple more titles being labeled strangely as well. User Noisy Turtle said a couple interesting things. The first being that a lot of people get lazy when it comes to collecting, which I'll admit I am at fault for, going on to say that many people use eBay to acquire their retro games with people who inflate prices. This buying of games like this makes the prices increase, as people see that they can increase these prices more and more, and people will just fork over the cash because the increased prices then become market value of the game, even though the original price may have been small, or the amount of the games being sold is actually large, meaning the price should be much lower. They also say, and I don't know how accurate this is, or if anyone can confirm the correlation, that around 2010 there were many popular YouTube channels that made retro games very popular, which also led to the increase in pricing as more and more people became interested in the hobby, with it becoming more unsustainable as some games came out in such limited quantities that more hard to come by games increased in price with. To me, the granddaddy of all being Earthbound, sitting at $1,000+ for a completed in-boxed version. Another user, DanR234, says that there are different games which held Japanese players' interest more, which most notably shoot 'em ups being the more expensive games in Japanese culture, while the more well-known titles in America were mass-produced in Japan, making the games cheaper there. I don't know how true this is, as I don't live in Japan, but they also went on to say most of the Japanese culture is minimalistic, not keeping the big game collections that Americans do today. Other people said it's due to the fact that importing the games isn't really a thing most people do, as they'd either have to have a console that can play the imported games while also knowing how to read the language, unless they otherwise don't care, or wait for a translation patch to be made online, which most people would have to hack their consoles as well to make these translations work in the first place, unless you want to emulate, but at that point you won't need the physical game except to dump it onto your computer. One user, Wasperine, said that it's perhaps also the fact that renting games is illegal in Japan. This started in 1984 due to the fact that many stores wouldn't rent original copies, but would make bootleg copies. This led to the people renting it to figure out their copies were bootleg, and then start making their own. This changed the gaming scene in Japan a little by how games are sold, with there only being 2 versions, new and junk. The name junk is misleading though, because Japanese versions of game junk was just if it was missing a manual or the box, and they sell it for much less than a new version. Many loose games in Japan can go for as little as 100 yen, which translates to roughly less than 1 cent in America. To kind of throw this all together, let's look at a game I mentioned a couple times throughout this. There it is, nice old Earthbound. I was able to find a nice copy at a local store for only $150, and that was just the game by itself. Now, compared to the Japanese version, Mother 2 on eBay, I found one for a measly, in comparison, $62, and that's a complete version of it. Yeah, the American version comes with a couple more things, but this is again due to the fact that limited quantities were made for America. Alright, that's all I came up with on the matter. I was just interested as I was doing some video game hunting and was on the fence for a couple expensive pieces. You'll definitely find that not every Japanese game is going to be cheaper in Japan than America, and that's just because of differences in popularity of different series or just general things that different cultures liked compared to others. So don't yell at me if the Japanese version is more expensive or if both are equally expensive. Sorry I can't give a more 100% definitive answer, but maybe some people will know more in the comments or spark a conversation where we can all learn a bit more. Hope you enjoyed and see you next video.